Chris Hipkins.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and can I thank all my parliamentary colleagues for coming along to listen to this contribution in the budget debate this afternoon. Mr Speaker, I feel a little bit like the parliamentary rugby team playing a curtain raiser before the All Blacks match. It might be a bit scrappy, but you know it's going to be passionate, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, I do want to, however, of course, note the significance of today, because not only are we going to hear from Shane Jones in his valedictory, I can say that this is the first time this parliamentary term that Shane has arrived before time to a speech that he is going to do in the House, and I think that that's an absolutely fantastic thing. Mr Speaker, it is my duty today to be the last speaker to talk about the budget before we move on to matters slightly brighter on the horizon. And I think nothing highlights the contradictions and the mixed priorities in this government's agenda than the education contribution in this year's budget. Charter schools getting an extra $6,000 a year per student on top of the up to $40,000 a year per student that they are already getting, while state schools are only getting $6,000 to $7,000 a year per student. How is that a level playing field? If this government genuinely cared about raising student achievement for those students who aren't doing very well, they wouldn't be putting money into charter schools, they would be putting money into every state school in the country. So why do we have charter schools? Because of a dodgy cup of tea deal with a party of political ghosts. A dodgy cup of tea deal with a party of political ghosts. They prized open the crypt, and out they popped with the new right playbook, and we ended up with charter schools in New Zealand. And we don't need charter schools. We need to be focused on making sure that every school in New Zealand is a good school, and every student gets the opportunity to achieve their full potential. While the government is lavishing money on charter schools in their ideological experiment cooked up with the party of political ghosts, schools and early childhood centres are barely getting enough funding to keep up with their rising costs. Schools increasingly reliant on parental contributions aren't getting the funding that they need. Bill English, who railed against the increasing costs to parents of education, and when he was the opposition spokesperson, has done absolutely nothing in 6 long years to do anything about that. Every year, the contribution parents make to their kids' education, the financial contribution they make, has gone up under this national government. And yet, parents are struggling to make ends meet, and this government are doing nothing about that. This government instead have decided to pick a fight with every teacher in the country. And over the last few weeks, we have sat in the Education and Science Select Committee and listened to submitter after submitter after submitter say that this government doesn't value them, doesn't respect them, and doesn't even trust them to have a say over how their own professional body is operating. I think that's absolutely disgraceful. Has the government been listening? No, they haven't. They haven't listened at all. But there is a better way, Mr Speaker. There is a better way, and it starts with making sure that every child in New Zealand has the best possible start through paid parental leave, through making sure their parents can make ends meet through the Best Start payment, through providing high-quality, freely accessible early childhood education to every child in the country. Those should be the priorities. Those are not the priorities of this national government. We should have trust and respect.
Order. The level of noise coming now from the chamber is completely unacceptable. I require Mr Hipkins to have a reasonably fair go.
Oh, that's all right, Mr Speaker. I'm pleased everybody is so excited by my contribution in the budget debate today. Mr Speaker, we should have trust and respect for education professionals. The best way forward for the education system in New Zealand is one that's based on collaboration, not based on a government saying to teachers that they're not trusted, they're not respected, and they're not even respected enough to have control over their own professional body. It also means that we should pay attention to the factors outside the school gate that have an impact on kids when they get into school. If parents don't have jobs, if they don't have adequate income, if they're not living in quality, warm, dry, affordable houses, then that's going to have an impact on kids' readiness to learn when they get to school. Where did we see reference to that in this year's budget? We didn't. The government were silent on the major issues around housing affordability, job creation. The government simply fudged it. They didn't do anything about those major issues that New Zealanders are facing. Mr Speaker, Mr. Speaker, if we want to get serious about making sure that New Zealanders have the brighter future that John Key promised them but has absolutely failed to deliver, we should start with children. We should start with making sure they get the best possible start in life. And the Labour Party is absolutely committed to that through increasing paid parental leave, through making sure that their parents, that children's parents who need the financial support can get it through the Best Start payment, by making sure that early childhood education is available. This government don't care about the quality of early childhood education. They have relaxed teacher quality requirements. They've relaxed the requirements for there to be fully registered qualified teachers in early childhood centres, and I think that's absolutely disgraceful. If we're going to increase participation in early childhood education, we should be making sure that it's quality participation in early childhood education. That's not something that this government are delivering on. If we really want to lift the status of the profession, we could start by making sure that we attract the very best people into the teaching profession in the first place, and yet the government have done absolutely nothing in this year's budget to make teaching a more attractive career for the best and brightest in our schools, and we should definitely be focused on doing that. Why should somebody consider teaching as a viable career when this government say that teachers can't even be trusted to have the control over their own professional body? We wouldn't do that to lawyers, we wouldn't do that to accountants, we don't do that for doctors, we don't do that for almost any other profession. In fact, the National Party seem to care more about real estate agents. They mounted a filibuster against the real estate agents' regulation, the regulation of the real estate industry, because they thought that real estate agents should be regulating themselves, and yet they won't allow teachers to do that. They care more about real estate agents than they do about teachers. Mr. Speaker, this budget has ignored the fundamental issues facing the education system. Instead, it has sloshed money around into an ideological experiment like charter schools, all because of the dodgy cup of tea deal with the political ghosts from the ACT Party, the dodgy cup of tea deal with the political ghosts from the ACT Party. And there's one of them, there may be one of them left in this Parliament now, but I can tell you what, one of them who's allowed to sit on this side of the Parliament, but there won't be any left in this Parliament after the coming election, and then we can finally put an end to the crazy madness that is the new right ideological experiment of charter schools. Mr. Speaker, finally, I am the final Labour Speaker to speak before Shane.
Order.
I am the final Labour Speaker to speak before Shane Jones gets to deliver his valedictory speech to the House today. And so I would like to take the opportunity, Mātua Shane, on behalf of the entire Labour caucus, and I know I speak for all of us, when I say that you have made an enormous contribution to our team. You've had a big impact on the Parliament in a whole variety of ways, and we will certainly miss you, and we wish you all the very best for the future.
Order. Honourable members, in accordance with the determination of the Business Committee, I call on the Honourable Shane Jones to make his valedictory speech. And could I start by pointing out to the member that I arrived at 5 o'clock to make sure that I got a seat for this important event.